OK then, well, it's Friday, and every Friday on the show I invite our resident film critic Van Connor to come on and talk about some of the new movies that are out this weekend. He gives us his honest opinion whether they're worth watching or whether they're worth just chucking in the bin. So let's see what he's got for us today. Good afternoon, Van Connor. How are you, my friend?
I can't possibly complain, Mr. Bourne. Do you know what? There's a new Batman movie. It's never a dull week when there's a new Batman movie. Say what you will about them, never dull. But we're going to talk first about Rebel Dread, which is a documentary I saw coming, and I thought I got to float this one to Mr. Bull. This is right up his alley.
Okay.
So this is a documentary about legendary British music figure Don Letts. You familiar with Don Letts, I assume?
Vaguely, not a massive amount of information.
DJ turned producer turned filmmaker and music video director, and one of those guys who you sort of just you see and know it's that guy, it's the music guy, and he's just royalty. He's just one of those figures that you just know of as royalty in the music industry, even if you don't entirely know who he is.
You'd recognise him.
This is the documentary that is his story.
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing about his story is, even if you don't know who he is, this basically plays like a sort of uber cool Forrest Gump of British popular music of the 70s and 80s. This guy just sort of happens upon every big thing that happens in the golden era of swinging Soho music in the 70s and 80s. The Clash, the Sex Pistols, Debbie Harry, they're all that. He literally shares a flat with Bob Marley at one point. I've got a clip for you of just this absolutely riveting stroll down a musical memory lane.
Punk rock's a living thing. It's about turning problems into assets. And as a first-generation British-born black, that's something I know a lot about.
That was the thing about the racial climate in Britain. It was pretty on fire when it came to dealing with the authorities, like the police and stuff like that.
And for us, being the generation born and raised here, it wasn't about trying to fit in. We had a different fight.
So the Roxy Club is this punk club, and Don was going to be the DJ.
One day he just announced, I'm going to get a camera. And from that moment, he was filming practically every band that played there.
Right up my alley. You are absolutely correct, Van Connor. Yes, and a great soundtrack as well.
Number one. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? It's profound when it needs to. It's cheeky when not. It's got a hell of an attitude. It kicks ass and takes names. I absolutely loved it. There is a quote that closes this from Don Letts that I loved so much. I'm going to have it made into a sign and mounted on my living room wall. I thought this was a whale of a time. This is in cinemas and on demand from today. It's called Rebel Dread. It's absolutely brilliant.
Right, well, you've sold it to me, and I'm definitely going to be watching that over the next week or so. All right, moving on to the one that you have been dying to talk about, the new Batman movie. Is it, Batman even, is it worth 3 hours of your time, though? 3 hours?
It's pretty good. I'm not going to lie. It's not bad. It's a darn sight better than the Ben Affleck era. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay, so this is a new iteration of the Batman. Okay, because for some reason we decided to add the at some point in popular culture a few years ago. I don't know why. I think it's ridiculous. Let's stop, shall we? Anyway, so this is adapted from the same source material, funnily enough, that The Dark Knight was. So it's called The Long Halloween from 1996 by Jeff Loeb. And this adapts that same work. Incidentally, there is a brilliant two-part animated movie adaptation of The Long Halloween that, if you watch after watching The Dark Knight and this, is a fascinating exercise in how to use the same material 3 different ways. So this time around, they've taken that material, and rather than applying it to the movie Heat, they've applied it to the movie Seven. So it's Batman in his second year of crime fighting again. So you can still kind of watch this as a Batman Begins sequel if you want. And this time there is a campaign of serial bombings and murders led by a mysterious question mark sporting figure. See if you can guess which classic Batman villain that might be. All of which coincides with Batman's one-man war on the mob, his only aid in which is Commissioner Gordon. But this new cat lady might be able to offer some help as well. I've got a clip for you to set the believe me, very specific atmospheric tone on this one.
I've been trying to reach you.
Riddler's latest. It's all about the Waynes. If we don't stand up, no one will.
You got a lot of cats.
I have a thing about strays. The bat and the cat. It's got a nice ring.
You a new friend of yours? I'm not so sure. I'm just here to unmask the truth about this cesspool we call a city. You're part of this too.
Hands up! Stay still!
How am I part of this? Oh, you're really not as smart as I thought you were. Bruce Wayne.
Oh, he sounds like the guy from Saw. Do you know the movie Saw?
He kind of does. Yeah, he kind of does. And that was a thing I've had going back years, because I remember at one point there were rumors that Johnny Depp was going to be Christopher Nolan's Riddler in what would become The Dark Knight Rises. And the logical extreme that you took that to in your mind at the time was, oh my God, if you gave Christopher Nolan the Riddler and you took away all the silliness, is that not just the killer from Saw?
Yeah.
And look at the actual result of that. It literally is the killer from Saw. We were right all along. And it turns out if you take away the goofiness of Johnny Depp and you give it to Paul Dano, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
This is not one for the kids. This is the most extreme version of Batman we've ever seen. Like, hands down. It's got some of the smarts of the Bale era, but it has got some of the Lantern George stupidity of the Affleck era. You know that bit where it's being clever and it's being subtle, it's all about imagery, and then all of a sudden it's wallop, 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 I am vengeance. And you're like, oh, good Lord, okay, stop it. Incidentally, Robert Pattinson, surprisingly great Batman. I mean, he's an awful Bruce Wayne. He's a terrible Bruce Wayne. There's literally 5 minutes of this thing go by. The first 5 minutes of this go by before we get to our first round of a shirtless emo guyliner sporting Bruce Wayne yelling, "You're not my real dad," at Alfred the butler, which is absolutely ludicrous. And yet somehow this ludicrously long, just comically OTT atmospheric 7 riff that happens to star Batman and Catwoman manages to pull it off. It just about lands the tone. It works because it commits to the bit. It isn't quite as ashamed of itself as the Zack Snyder one was. It commits in that way that Nolan did, and I really liked it. It maybe doesn't justify 3 hours. It does feel like you've just watched like 4 episodes of an HBO Max show back to back, which, given they're lining up 2 HBO Max shows on the back of this, probably is saying something. But I liked it. I thought Matt Reeves did a hell of a job capturing this. It looked halfway between Tim Burton and Christopher Nolan. It's sort of that scale. Got the HD gloss of Nolan, but some of the atmosphere and gothic nature of Nolan. Good times. Andy Serkis is a good Alfred the Butler. Rock on. This seems to be working. I'd watch another one of these.
2 movies in a row that you've said are good. It rarely happens. So we will take this. We will
softening
grasp
in my old age.
And when's that out? That's out today, isn't it?
That is out today. It is rated 15, as I say, so do not try and take the kids to this one. And I think they will have to check IDs on this one. Also, 2 hours, 55 minutes without trailers. So do take a cushion.
Absolutely. I was saying that earlier on. Thank you, Van Connor. We will catch up next week. Have a lovely weekend, fella.
Until the next time, good sir.